with
Wow.
our guest, Ben Warren. It is our Monday weekly podcast where we exchange our interesting points of view and unique perspectives. Um, so I did want to, I wanted to just jump back in quickly just for the first part of this because it got like four different topics to kind of try to cover today.
Okay.
But I remember, we've talked about, as far as the Middle East, you said, hey, there should be a peace uh, agreement, which of course no one in their right mind wouldn't agree.
No, no. I
And
wait,
then,
wait, hold on. Okay, can I just jump right in?
well, you didn't let me finish.
Peace. I don't think there'll ever be peace. I think it's a problem that we've got to work on constantly, right? It's not a solution, it's a problem.
Well, hopefully there's going to be peace because if there isn't peace, then there's a never-ending cycle of death and destruction. It's got to be one or the other. The two, you can't have peace and no death and destruction coexist simultaneously.
I just mean to say by that is it's a constant struggle, it's a constant problem. I don't believe in a peace for that area of the world. There's just I don't
I
even
believe in it. I definitely believe in it because I'm optimistic in general about, about pretty much everything. So I always believe there's a way. But in our last discussions, I know that you had said there should be a ceasefire.
I mean, yeah, I believe there should be negotiations. I believe that it's going to take a long time. I believe it has been managed somewhat successfully at one point in the 70s, I think when I think Kissinger came the closest to getting that area in some sort of order where the got close to the situation that we want.
Yeah, and I think that Jimmy Carter tried and Bill Clinton tried. We had a few events. We had the Oslo Accords. We had the Oslo II Accords.
Hmm.
We've had so many different events. I think Clinton probably came the closest,
Hmm.
and they're rejected because of the fundamental understanding that they don't want to cohabitate with Jewish people is pretty much the bottom line. We've got, I think it's 74 Christian countries in the world. We've got 28 Muslim countries in the world.
Hmm.
We've got one Jewish country.
Hmm.
And even the Jewish country is only about 70% Jewish, which is
Hmm.
fine because there's diversity and everything. But it's very difficult to have a ceasefire when you are constantly being shot at. So last week, the audio went out, and what I was trying to point out oh, by the way, if the audio ever goes out, all you have to do is say, I can't hear you. You didn't do,
They?
yeah, that's it.
What do you mean they?
If the audio goes out,
Yeah.
all you have to do is say, hey, Enrique, I can't hear you.
Oh, I thought you said they,
No,
not him.
you. That's all you got to do.
I thought you went by they now all of a sudden.
No. I watched the video. I watched the podcast back, and I can hear your hands fumbling around, and then you're going like as if though you can't talk, but you can talk fine. All you got to do is say, "Hey, I can't hear you."
No, I was saying.
No, you weren't. You weren't because I could hear
Really?
all of the noises. Yeah. You assumed that I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm
You couldn't
sorry.
hear me. Anyway, it
All right.
doesn't matter. So, what I was trying to show you last time is so I have an app. It's called the Red Alert, and all the Israelis have it. And people all over the world have this app, and this is what it looks like. And it gives you a real time um, alert as to when something is happening, when an attack is happening. So just today alone, rocket attack in Neve Mivtak, rocket attack in B'nai Darom compound, rocket attack in Maishir, rocket attack in Kerem Bavan, rocket attack in Kfar Aviv, rocket attacks in Kanat, rocket attack in Hazar. So that's all just in the last 9 minutes
Hmm.
since kind of we started, but it goes up. There are hundreds of rockets being sent, and also um, uh, IDEs, all kinds of things being sent into Israel every hour since since October 7th, but for 20 years before that, it hasn't been every hour, but it's like every week. And today, there was, I think it's 17 rockets went towards Tel Aviv. And out of 17, 12 of them were stopped by the Iron Dome, and 4 of them weren't, because that's what happens. The Iron Dome is not some kind of a perfect thing, but they're constantly shooting at densely populated urban areas. So it's very difficult to communicate and to try to, have a ceasefire when they just say, yeah, let's have a ceasefire, but then they never stop shooting.
Yeah.
So a ceasefire to them is just ceasefire for one side and not the other. And I think that that's a real problem.
Well,
I
there's other
did an
other
interview.
problems on the other side too. Every side has their own opinion as to what is acceptable behavior from the other side, and
No,
it's a
absolutely.
fluid line that goes back and forth and changes all the time. And the world has its own line that it continually tries to, navigate and enforce their own kind of standards on the situation. They try to articulate that. I'm sure Biden right now is articulating to Netanyahu exactly what he expects. Netanyahu is pushing back, I'm sure, and um,
No,
look,
I think Biden is telling him. I think they're probably in real agreement, the two of them.
well,
I would imagine, because
I don't
Biden.
think so. I
I,
personally, I'm of the opinion that they're not in agreement.
I think that they are. I think that they
Okay.
are. The people that I've spoken to in Washington have certainly said, yeah, there's something that Biden has to do in order to put forth to the public is very different than his private conversations. And also I don't think Biden's just managing this by himself. There's a committee of people, but you
This
know,
country is a, do you mind if I just say this? This country is a democracy, right?
yeah,
That means the voices of the people have to be heard, and they should ultimately, in the best case scenario, affect the government. There's
yeah.
a lot of voices in this country that are aghast at our support of Israel, which to them has translated into a support of a genocidal act, of hostility, a humanitarian crisis, a water and food crisis for a lot of people in that area. And I know this obviously has been going on forever. You can talk about ceasefires but we can't even get to that point until we start to understand what each side wants, right?
Yeah.
W-
Well, we already have a
Palestine
very
wants. Okay, go ahead.
we already have a very, very clear understanding of what each side
All
wants.
right, so
I don't
in
think there's
terms
a
of
mystery.
giving up a portion of Israel to Palestine, if
Well, they already in 2005, the Israelis basically bequeathed Gaza to the Palestinian people, and they moved tens of thousands of Israelis, had to immediately evacuate their homes in very short notice, and they all left. And they were told, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. There's nothing we can do. You got to leave now. You've got a week. And tens of thousands of Israelis left Gaza and then were in some sort of flux for whatever period of time. And then they resettled somewhere else. So that was already done.
Well,
It's
that might not have been satisfactory, though.
Well, that's true. What the thing that the Palestinians have said is the only thing that they'll be satisfied with is if from the river to the sea. And so the one thing that will satisfy the Palestinian people that are living in the West Bank and Gaza is that every Jewish person be removed from the country. Nothing short of that will satisfy them. So obviously that's not going to work. So they've been given the Gaza Strip, the Sinai, the West Bank, but they're not happy with that. They want all or nothing. So that's why
Well, okay.
the conflict.
When Kissinger was negotiating and reached this agreement in 79, and he fought like hell to get Israel to concede a portion of the land to
Mhm.
Palestine.
Yeah.
But it's been a battle ever since.
Well, I think that you've got a lot of context missing. When Kissinger went to do that, that was, I mean, at first, I think that was the 1973 war, if I'm not mistaken. So what happened there was during the time that they tried to do an agreement, Israel was invaded by 5 Arab countries.
Right, right.
So
Syria,
that didn't work out.
Egypt.
The thing is that here we are now in 2023. The Palestinians want all or nothing, and it's not even satisfactory. And this is all in their charter, and it's been said over and over and over, not just for the last 2 months, but for the last 40 years, that once the Jews leave, then they must be hunted down like animals, wherever they may exist in the world. So that is not going to work either. So so Jews used to live in Morocco, they used to live in Yemen, they used to live in Libya, they used to live in Egypt, uh, and several other countries, and they were all forced to leave.
All of them?
All of them.
There are
All
no Jews in Morocco?
No, I think there's four. And they're well known for being there. There's four Jewish people living in Morocco with very, very special circumstances. So I sent you a long text about this about, I guess, 2 months ago. And there are no Jews living in Egypt. No, and there might be a tourist going there to see the pyramids every now and then and taking some photographs, but that's different. Jordan, none. There apparently, according to the census, there are 2,000 Jewish people living in Iran, which is the most amount of Jewish people living in any one of these particular countries. But that is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the population, obviously. Do you know what the population of Iran is?
No.
Here, I'll just tell you. I'm going to look it up just to get it right. 87 million people live in Iran.
Huh.
2,000 Jews. I don't know if it's 1,907 right now. You know what I mean? People get old and die. This was as of September of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of Jewish people that are living in Iran. So they've all been forced to leave. So the whole idea of saying, oh yeah, come in and then we'll all just live together in Israel is not a possibility because we know what happens when that happens. Now, that's specific, that's a specific Palestinians. There are hundreds of thousands of Arabs and Palestinians living in Israel right alongside the Jewish people also. They're the type of Palestinians who want to live harmoniously together. So
Hmm.
any Palestinian that wants to live harmoniously together is welcome in Israel to have a happy life. But it's the ones that are determined to kill people as much as possible are the ones that aren't. So anyway, that's basically, you know, the long and the short.
I,
I
I,
hope for the best.
okay.
I think
I,
it's
I just want to say that from what I'm getting, I see that thousands of Jews live in Morocco currently. So I just want to, I know you said four, I see thousands. I just don't know
where
if
are you
anybody
seeing
at
that?
home
Where are you seeing that?
on through my sources
Yeah, no, no.
on
Um,
Wikipedia and Google.
yeah,
But
no,
look, I want to ask the people at home to just do their own research. Sometimes you hear things on the show, and I just encourage everyone to just do their own research because
yeah.
we
So it
we don't
shows
know.
here, right here, after the sinking of egos, pressure was exerted on Morocco and the secret treaty was signed with King Hassan II. And consequently, a massive exodus of Jews from Casablanca port was carried out under the supervision of General Ofkir. Some Jews came to Israel and some immigrated to France and other countries.
Yeah, like my brother-in-law immigrated to France from Morocco.
Right.
He's
Today in 2023, Um, Visigothic King Sisebut mandated that every Jew who would refuse for over a year to have himself or his children and servants baptized would be banished from the country and deprived of his possessions. The entire Jewish population of Galilee uh, was massacred. So
but you
everybody
didn't answer the question.
everybody should do their own research, but the one of the great things about tuning into this podcast is you're always going to get reliable and good, reliable information that is true and is not politically influenced. We don't take any sponsorships here, so we will never, ever be forced to have a bias or anything like that.
No, I don't want you to be biased, but I do want to just say there are thousands of Jews living in Morocco today. It is true. There were, let's say, 250,000 Jews around World War II living there, but it has the population has greatly diminished. The reason I'm interested in Morocco is my brother-in-law is Moroccan, my niece and nephew are Moroccan. They moved to France, they moved to Paris, they live they live
Here it
well
is.
in,
Here's the answer. 2,000 Jews live in Morocco today.
okay. So that's a little higher than four, right?
Well, this is, I think it's way less than this. This is just according to Google,
Okay.
but I think it's actually way less because I have another source that says there are four.
Okay.
And so, and I sent you that source. I sent you a screenshot of it about
Okay.
3 months ago, and I sent you that source. So the total population population of Morocco is 37 million people. There
Yeah.
used to be millions of Jews living in
Yeah.
Morocco.
Well, 250,000.
No, well, I think it was, yeah, I think it was about a million actually at one point. In the 19, I think in the 1930s, I think it was about a million.
It says in 1948, at the peak, there were 260,000 Jews living in Morocco.
Okay, so let's use that. So 260,000 Jews living in Morocco, 258,000 were forced to leave or they were massacred. That's not like right now. There's a lot of talk all over all over the state stream media that is basically talking about how 20,000 um, innocent civilians were killed in Gaza. 20,000, there's 2.2 million people living in Gaza.
Right.
It's a tiny, tiny amount of people were killed in Gaza in the last conflict in comparison to the expected amount. The expectation was about 600,000 deaths by most military analysts
Well,
because what?
that would have been a
That would
genocide.
have been that would have been I'm sorry, I meant to say 400,000. I made a mistake. 400,000 was the expectation, which would have put the amount of deaths almost at the level of the amount of deaths that occurred in Syria, that by Bashar, that nobody really talks about or marches about or complains about.
Right.
So it's just, it's an
Let's
interesting
talk
thing.
about that.
What the way that Israel is handling this, although I feel terrible about the innocent kids, I think it's a shame. I think it's awful. I think Israel is doing everything it possibly can in its power to avoid civilian deaths.
Really?
Yet, to whatever extent they can possibly go to, they are avoiding it.
Telling them to vacate to certain areas and then bombing those areas?
No, I think that there was one incident that was on the news, and then that turned out to be confusing and not necessarily reliable either.
Oh, okay.
So they
Again, do your
are
own research, right?
they are going and sending soldiers in boots on the ground, risking Israeli lives in order to save Palestinian lives. That's the whole point. Otherwise, they would just do the whole thing from air assaults, and then and no Jewish soldiers or no Israeli soldiers would die, and they would be able to not worry about it, and then and that would be that. But I can't imagine, and I'm in communication with people in Israel who are in the IDF on a regular basis, and I hear directly from them. They are doing everything in their power to avoid civilian casualties. And the way Israel does it is they give everybody an app, and it tells them where to leave when rockets are coming in from Gaza. So this way they can escape. And they've got about 5-minute warnings, and oftentimes, to get out, which is actually enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why very few Israelis are getting killed in the densely populated areas. Israelis are able to move and get out of the way in 5 minutes. It's working for them. And then the bombs stop, the bombs crash, they make a mess, and then that's that. But they are concentrating the Iron Dome on the densely populated civilian areas, but it's not like some kind of perfect system. It's kind of like a video game. The missile comes, and then you are manning this table, and you've got to shoot that missile down. And the unfortunate thing is, those missiles being shot by Hamas, I don't know, let's say, I think they're like $75,000 missiles. The
Mhm.
missiles to knock those things out cost like $600,000. So that's another very unfortunate, situation, which is, putting people in a, in a bad situation. But Israel is a Western, kind of a very Americanized country,
Yeah.
Western country. So we have uh, the fourth strongest economy in the world is Israel.
Huh.
And, um, you know, so here I got this. Uh, Israel has a politically moderate government. fiscally conservative while being socially liberal. Their Supreme Court is
Right. That's
considered,
not true.
yeah, it's considered left of center, and the Knesset is considered just right of center.
That's not true. And I sent you an article from
Hang on a
PBS.
second.
Dot,
Hang on a second. And because of the government and the way that it's structured there, with a slightly right-leaning Knesset and a slightly left-leaning um, Supreme Court, Israel has among the highest per capita wealth in the world. Data compiled by Forbes, Israel based on IMF data shows Israel with GDP per capita of $43,689 for per capita for 2020. And
so what does this have to do
hold
with?
on,
I'm just curious. Like, what is your point?
I'm giving you the point. I'm saying there's a hatred towards any nation that treats their people well. There's a anti-Western movement throughout the world, which is a hatred towards America, where an enormous swath of the population is very wealthy. Hatred towards Israel, where the enormous population is very wealthy. So let me finish. So it's $58,270 per capita in 2023, ranking above Canada, New Zealand, and the UK, Luxembourg, and most other European countries, and nearly every Middle Eastern country. Saudi Arabia, in comparison, has a per capita GDP of $23,185. The Economist ranked Israel as the fourth most successful economy on earth for 2022. The IMF estimated Israel's GDP at 464 billion and its GDP per capita of 58,270 in 2023, which is the 13th highest in the world. That's a figure comparable to the other highly most developed countries in the world. So
Israel. I'd like to respond because I'm already forgetting what my main point was.
yeah, they
Let me
are,
know when you're finished, though. I don't want to like.
make sure that I deposit that. The slightly right-leaning Knesset balances out very well with the slightly left-leaning Supreme Court. Some people actually argue that the Supreme Court and that whole judicial system is a little bit more than slightly left-leaning. It's more left than that. I'll use the words that are being written, calling it moderate left-leaning.
Okay. I just want to. Can I respond? Are you finished?
Yeah. It's an
Okay.
attack on
So,
any nation that
this is
is
what I
great.
like to say.
Yeah.
Do your own research at home because what you're hearing here is pure spin. There are
What you're hearing
actual
here
news
is the truth. You
organizations
can't
like
say things like that.
PBS.org that said,
Where?
PBS.org
And nobody in their right mind would ever actually
and
listen.
Frontline and
Nobody. No,
NewsHour,
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
they they
You can't
they
insult the
can,
audience by
can I
saying
finish?
PBS.
You
PBS
just had a
is
nice
the
little.
record.
I'd love the opportunity to speak.
I just want to just say
Let me
PBS.
know when you're finished, though.
Yeah, I just want to state PBS is at the lowest level of garbage as far as media and reliability. There's
That's not
very
true.
there's very little that is lower garbage than PBS.
That's
Anyway,
not true.
yes, it is. Go on.
All right. Anyway, I just want to finish. They had an article and I sent them free will.
Well, no, nobody left of their own free will. Nobody.
Oh, that's not true.
They were forced.
That's
Very.
not true. I actually have family that left of their own free will.
They just didn't like it there.
Yeah, they decided to move to France.
Just decided. Okay. Most of them didn't want to leave. They have their homes. People don't just want to be uprooted and forced out. But Egypt used to have 63,550 Jews. Today has three.
Okay, so that's what you meant, right?
Yeah. Syria used to have 40,000 Jews. Today has zero. You can't be a Jew and be in Syria. Iran used to have 100,000 Jews and now has 8,500.
Yeah.
Iraq had 150,000 Jews and now has four. Lebanon had 20,000 and now has 29. Yemen had 55,000 and apparently there's one Jew still in Yemen somehow. Algeria, 140,000 Jews, today has 200. Libya had 38,000, now zero. Gaza used to have 7,949 Jews and today has zero. So we could also mention Tunisia that used to have well over 100,000 Jews and today has about 900. So the Jewish people, when the Jewish people are constantly thrown out of these countries, they have different value systems. They believe in equality for women, men, people of other races. So that's what the Jewish people are. That's what Israel is. They don't kill their women when they do something wrong. In Gaza, for example, rape is legal. In most of these countries, there's no such thing as a man raping a woman. And if a woman gets raped by a man, she's usually stoned to death, thrown in jail. That's what it's like living in those particular countries. So Israel is an oasis for people to live with Western values, American style values,
And
European.
what okay, you describe a country that is one of the wealthiest in terms of per capita income.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what is your point with that? Should we stop sending aid, for example? Should the United States lessen its aid because they're doing so well financially?
The United States sends very little aid to Israel. I think it's $3.5 billion a year.
And you would describe that as little?
Yeah, that's a very small amount of aid for a country that is giving America back at least that amount in value. We are the eyes and ears. We are a friend in the Middle East. We are a Western influence on the Middle East in Israel. So it is very valuable. It's certainly worth $3.5 billion a year to be able to do that. If Israel didn't get that money, then it would definitely harm the country to some degree. But
I just want, can I say one thing real quick? When Israel creates a humanitarian crisis like the likes of which that we're seeing, and you say it is the representation of American values, if it increases the hatred of America in the eyes of every one of these kids and families that have been affected by this awful crisis that we've created.
so you're actually blaming Israel for the humanitarian crisis.
I believe Israel is creating a humanitarian crisis that will not go unanswered. It will go answered, and we will face blowback, just like we've seen other wars that we perpetrated on the area. And there, if you're saying that we in Israel are brothers and connected, then we as Americans will see the blowback from it too. So not only Israel, but we're putting ourselves in jeopardy, and we have to be doubly careful as to make sure our behavior is completely correct. I think you agree
Absolutely.
with me, right? Yeah.
I think it has been completely correct. Um,
Well, a lot of Americans, and like we say, we live in a democracy, do not believe it is correct. You think they're all just being misled or misinformed, or
I always think that there's going to be a lot of people with various different opinions, various different levels of understanding of a situation, and they're entitled to their opinion. You
yeah.
know? But we are in a democracy, and the majority of Americans support Israel.
I like to see, because I feel like you are very supportive of Israel, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Um,
I'm supportive. I'm supportive of just governments.
okay.
Governments that take care of their people, that encourage people's upward mobility. I am in support of governments who have free market capitalism as their main economic driver, because I think that that's the way to enrich the citizens the most. And I support countries with fair legal systems, and I support countries that don't marry off 9-year-old girls to 30-year-old men to do what they want with them. It's just I support countries that are just and fair. And
Can I
Israel,
ask you a question?
yeah,
When I see that your position is nuanced, that your position has doubt in and you where you can see the behavior of a certain government or country and you can call it out even though you are in support of it. When
yeah.
I see that, I tend to I find it much more easy for me to be understanding of your position.
If
But it
Israel ever,
sounds to me, can you, let me ask you this, can you point out anything that you think Israel has done wrong in this situation?
no.
Nothing.
Well, yeah, no, I can point out a couple things. One of the things that Israel did wrong is they accidentally killed 3 hostages.
No, no, no. Besides from that, which is a clear, I mean, that's just like that's low hanging fruit. Can you choose anything else,
Uh,
or do you have difficulty?
no, I can't find anything else. I mean, there might be. You could point out something, and I might agree with you. But I think that the way that they handled this is with kindness, with thoughtfulness, with consideration. And under the circumstances, I think that
Okay.
most countries would find that extremely difficult to do. Going,
Very interesting.
yeah, going and I mean, what would you have had them do
Huh.
instead? What would you have had them do differently?
Okay. Right now,
No,
many coun-
what would you have had them do differently? Can you just answer that question if you don't mind, instead of going off onto something else? What would you have done differently in specific action?
I would address the crisis of water and food.
Okay, so that is exactly what Israel has done.
I
They
don't
have,
think they've done a good enough job at
they
all.
have
At
done,
all.
I'm going to tell you, they have done such a good job. It's actually shocking. So you keep referring to a humanitarian crisis that's
Yes.
going on. 98% of all of the money, the aid, some of which came from Israel over the years. Israel sends aid to Gaza every year. So does the United States, and so does Europe. The UK
Not
specifically.
as much to Gaza as to Israel.
No, but Israel does
Not
give,
by a long shot, right?
they give a lots of aid. $22 billion worth of aid they've given Gaza since 2005. 22 billion. So just so you understand, 99% of all of that money went just to the 4 leaders of Hamas. They took all of that money for themselves and they live in opulence and extraordinary luxury, driving Bugattis, living in palaces, and hunkered down in Qatar. So
So
then,
the United States knowingly gives $1 billion a year to Palestine, and it gets stolen by the radical leadership of Hamas for their own benefit, and we still continually give money year after year.
well, we do. We give money year
That
after
sounds like
year.
our problem, not theirs.
Well, the problem is that if we stop giving, it's a tough situation. So we're giving, and Israel is giving. Israel went back as an offer to help rebuild their agricultural infrastructure that they destroyed in 2005. You know, they left them with a beautiful, beautiful place. Gaza in 2005 was a gorgeous, gorgeous place. So they left them with that. Agricultural infrastructure, greenhouses, all sorts of technology, and they destroyed it all. And the Hamas leaders took all of the money, and the 1% that they left is all used for weapons to destroy Israel. So here's the other side of the coin. The more people that die in Gaza, the more civilians that die in Gaza, the better it is for guess who?
True.
For the Hamas leaders. So they are cheering every single time a child dies, while the Israelis are crying.
Oh
Every,
no, I do not agree with that statement at all.
I know that that happens to be true because they it's awful to
I
for
have seen Israeli soldiers shoot at children.
you have
Oh yeah, I've seen clips.
of an Israeli soldier shoot at a child that wasn't wearing a bomb, that wasn't threatening, nothing, right?
Yes, I have.
Right. So why don't you share it?
I will.
Well, you could put it on the screen now if you want.
I can't do it now.
Because, and if one Israeli soldier did something like that, I actually did read about that on the in the newspaper, and that particular soldier is being is been arrested,
Thank
removed of his
God.
duties, and he's also been is going to be tried in court.
Thank God. But there might be others that we don't know about and we haven't seen.
It's very unlikely. But that's what the Israelis do. If an Israeli soldier does something wrong, they go to jail.
Well,
But
we don't like, okay,
what happens when a soldier,
listen to me.
for a Gazan soldier, does something wrong? They celebrate in the streets. They paraded the dead bodies of hostages all around Gaza as the Palestinian people cheered and rejoiced at the dead bodies, touching them and punching them. And I'm sure you've seen those videos. So it's a very different world
Well,
that
you have to understand, there's again, it's perspective, right? If if you as a Palestinian feel you've been living like an animal and being mistreated and being and been deprived of humanitarian conditions even before this,
you know what I would do?
then
I
you then you wait, I'm not finished. Then you might your whole world becomes about destroying your oppressor.
Yes, and that's what it should be. And that's why they should all get together and destroy their government and do a coup d'etat and destroy Hamas. But they didn't. So that's exactly right. They should also know who their oppressor
Right.
is.
Well, sometimes that's difficult to know.
Lots of things are difficult in this world, but in this case, it's pretty obvious who the oppressor is. The oppressor is their own government. You guess how many since 2005, 200,000 Palestinians have been killed. by Hamas. Just in the last 2 months, you've seen dozens of Palestinians killed by Hamas. They shoot, listen, they shoot the Palestinian people, the civilians who are trying to escape and leave the areas that the Israelis told them to leave.
Okay.
I've seen videos from IDF soldiers that have sent them to me and said, look at what these guys are doing. They murder their own people. So you're right. They should understand who the oppressor is. And it is very difficult for them to actually be able to do that. That's why what Israel is right now is a liberator of the Palestinian people. They are freeing them from Hamas, who is a terrorizing force. And that's what they're doing. So you didn't answer. You,
No, I disagree with that. And
I mean, it's obvious
Palestinians
to me that
voted,
that's what they're
they
doing.
voted in Hamas.
The Venezuelans voted in Hugo Chavez.
The United States voted in Trump.
That's right. And look at what
So
Trump
they,
did. And look.
Italy just voted into a far right leader as well.
No, there's no far right.
Yes,
You
there is a far right.
define far right to me.
All right, there are certain principle. Well, look, I should say before we get into this, I do have to go. I have to pick up the kid. I'm not just trying to get out of a conversation. Can we continue this next time?
Yeah, but just define far right. That's all I'm asking you to do.
All right, in an authoritarian regime, generally speaking, they don't like a free media. They like a weakened media so that they can control the talking points. Does this sound familiar to you? You know,
You're describing the far left, by the way. But go on.
oh, sure. Um, they
They
like
went
a
to
strong
they tried to shut
military.
down X. That's the most free media that there is.
No, no, the the reason I don't like the platform X is because anybody can say anything, and if you are in a position of where you have 100,000 followers, you could say something like, "Oh yeah, take ivermectin for COVID," and we just learned that there were how many people that died from it? 60,000, 100,000?
No,
How many people died?
I think one.
No, thousands from misinformation that is commodified on X.
No, first of
Basically,
all,
what Musk is, I don't want to get into this now. Look, I
let
gotta
me tell
go. I
you,
gotta
let me
pick up
tell
the
you,
kid.
wait. Let me just tell you this real quick. You know what the mainstream media did? The left-wing media did? What they did was they told people that ivermectin was horse dewormer. That's the type of misinformation that came out of NBC, ABC, CBS.
Well, if it convinced people not to take it, we just learned that thousands of people died from the
Never
misuse.
learned that. We'll go.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
No,
Anyway, we'll talk about it later. I got to go pick up the kid. This has been great before. I think you should maybe cut this last bit out because we're getting off topic.
no,
But
it's fine. Look, I'm going to post it. I'll send it to you, but same time every Monday. So just click on accept on the calendar invite that I send you in your email,
okay,
and then make sure that the alarms go off because I don't want to have to call you every single time. This has been
okay.
great. I'll post it up, and thank you. Have a nice day.
Peace out.
All right.